And now, if we try to formulate, we will try to formulate now game theoretical semantics for non-Fregean logics. Then we again have to take into account the situations that semantics of non-Fregean logic is not truth-false semantics. It's a factual semantic of facts and non-facts. And exactly, this is a formalism for this interpretation. You see, this work as follows. For example, we have an interpretation of the atomic sentence. Yes? We say that his interpretation is fact. We say that this is a fact. That this atomic is fact. If and only if, when we have in the model, we have exactly such a relation, or the relation is under the relation on such elements of our model. Well, then we proceed more standardly. Conjunction is a fact if and only if the facts are both A and B, different interpretation of both elements. Disjunction will be one of these parts will be for fact, and so on. Only this point is interesting for us because it's exactly typically non-Fregean point, because we have that interpretation of identity says us that this identity is a fact of two elements if and only if interpretation of alpha is equal to beta. This is the same, practically the same. It is the same situation. With both for I and B, and we both also point to the same situation. This is exactly a non-Fregean point of our model. So now we can proceed trying to yield game theoretic semantic for such kind of logics. If we try to count all these elements, I omit all the points and leave only points concerning our non-Fregean points. Exactly these points. It's exactly what is a game theoretical point. Well, the main statements of this game theoretical semantic are the same. We have a game, we have a strategy, we have kind of strategy, and our formula will be effective. We will have a winning strategy for this formula. But this point, exactly new point, non-Fregean point, will be as follows: this game for such kind of formula as identity. It starts from the trying to understand, is such a situation which is in respect to this formula, is the situation a fact in our model? If it's true, then myself is a winner. If not, then the nature is winner. And an atomic situation also. We have for atomic formula, if S is atomic formula of identity, then if S is fact, in our standard semantic was is true, and here we have is a fact. Is a fact, then myself is a winner. If it's non-fact, again the standard semantic false, and here is non-fact, then the nature is a winner. So the specific non-Fregean points for game theoretical semantics. And now we can couple of words concerning about how we can prove completeness and complete soundness of such kind of system in such a semantics. In usual game theoretical semantics, we can find, for example, in Hintikas version, we can describe such a situation if we use the rules for we can use these rules consider the rules for disjunction but first step on this way is to reformulate our model, reformulate our notion of model in a sense of which is it's inverse model. So to use to formulate our rules of constructing our model as inverse rules. For example, the same we can do in case of non-Fregean logics. For example, how it will be work. For example, if for example this interpretation of this atomic formula is a fact, but it's not true that this is a model. It's not true. The model doesn't work. Then please introduce some singular constant such that it will be true. You see here, and then add them to our universe. And so on, in case of another connective, for example, for conjunction. If we have that this is a fact, but it's not true that any of them is a fact, then please add respective situation to the class of our facts. For disjunction, if the disjunction is true, but not true that one of them is not fact, so if this is a fact, but one of them is not fact, then please choose one from the situation and add them to the class of facts. And so on, so on. For example, especially non-Fregean point, if interpretation of identity is a fact, so to say identity is a fact, interpretation of identity is a fact, but it's not true that this interpretation, any of them are the same. Then please postulate the satisfaction of such a kind of condition, You see now these inverse rules are, so to say, categorical imperative rules. Not take an actually existing model, but please build it. But build it according to your formulas. And then the next step will be.
Wait, I just sorry. Can you go back? What does it mean? This is the fact. That means that it's true in your model.
Yeah, that means that my model is fact. I have a notion of true in my model. Only facts. This is mean that if it's a fact, spectrum means that we have such relation in my model. If we have such kind of relation, I can say, oh, that it is a fact. But there can be such a situation that I'm speaking that it is a fact, but in another model I cannot find such a relation, real. I can find such a relation. Then what can I do? I can simply introduce all that I need to obtain such a construction in my model. If I will have such a kind of construction in my model, then I will say that this really is a fact, and this is because it's really I have really such a relation in my model. It can be the situations you can say this is a fact, but you cannot find really such a relation in my model. What can I do? I can simply add to my model such kind of relation. This is about exactly extension of my model.
Вот что ты говоришь, когда неверно, что значит неверно? В каком смысле неверно?
Ну, неверно, что нету, не имеется.
В твоей модели.
Ну да, ты смотри, видишь, здесь у меня не жирными буквами, а здесь жирными. Это же выражение языка. Это выражение языка, это выражение модели.
Вот я вот это.
This is bold, as the usual.
But D is expression.
D is the interpretation.
Is interpretation.
Yes, interpretation of language. I said that this interpretation is a fact, but I cannot prove because I cannot find such a construction in my model, which will be exactly this interpretation. What can I do in this situation? I just need to modify my model. And I'm trying to modify it. This will be good for all those forms of which I will say that their interpretation is a fact. That they are speaking about facts, but I couldn't find these facts. So please add these facts to my model.
But you say if this is a fact, how do you know this is? Oh, so maybe later.
I say that interpretation of this expression is a fact.
Okay.
So this expression speaks on the
Okay,
fact,
okay.
but I cannot find such a fact. Fact is not the expression of my language. My expression speaking about facts. I said that, yes, of course, my expression speaking on facts. And you ask me, and where is this fact? And I can't find. Can't find it. Then I simply add to my model this fact, so to say. It's a trick. It's a trick of my fact.
So D is part of your language?
D is a function of interpretation. D, it means that.
Okay. So you interpret all relation.
Yes, if I have D from
but you cannot interpret.
D from M.
Okay, thanks. I see this.
But I cannot find exactly this element.
So
I cannot find this element. What can I do in this situation? So I need to simply modify my model. This is the sense of this inverse rule. Yes, modify your model. In case of Non-Fregean, if we have not such a condition, so please modify your model such as this condition, you can find such a satisfaction of this condition. So this is an inverse rule for considering this model. This is exactly comments on your question about this model, where I can find. So the first notion was actual model, and here we have such a, so to say, like in Dushlyanistic, constructive, not actual but potential model. And then the potential model, starting from potential model, we are trying to transform it into actual. And then when we find it, then if we make them, then we can speak about this question concerning this soundness and incompleteness of our logics. Because in this sense, this notion, this rules 13, it's exactly the rules 13. Oh, sorry. I omit numbers of rules. I omit numbers of rules. Number 13 is a rule concerning disjunction. So if we have disjunctions, trying to our rules for disjunctions, it give us two possibilities to construct in our models, because we choosing one of elements. One, for example, you can find this element to add it to his model, but you can choose another element and add it to this, trying to add this for your model. So you have two models. So you have such kind of form. If both of them leads to leads that our another rule will be not true, that we can obtain a contradictory. Our logic will become contradictory. Our construction becomes contradictory. In this case, we can say that. In a sense, it's exactly postulating of our soundness of our logic. I have to say that this kind of reason is exactly as in the classical case. By instead of truth and false, I'm speaking about situation, facts, and models which is obtaining from usual models by adding names for our relations to obtain situation, because our situations are tuples, in fact. And so on we can, the other way around, if our A will be contradictory, then the situation will be obtained after the finite number of our steps of our construction, under the condition of choose the respective order of the applying rules, those rules, previous rules. And so this result, following Hintikal, we can find the completeness theorem. And so on. Exactly this mechanism works like a case of classical logic, like Kintika do it, but exactly when we substitute our notion of truth and false and models with models on facts, situational models, we obtain exactly the application of our rules. Couple of words concerning about non-Fregean logic. What about the case of non-Fregean logic? We have only not coreferentiality of two expressions, but coreferentiality in a sense. In this case, we need to modify our notion of universal situations. The structure of this universe will be more complex because we have to add the family of some relation, equivalence relation, which will be described on the universal situation. This family must satisfy the following three conditions. First, if the two situations are equal, then it follows that we can always find at least one relation which connected those situations. So if two situations are the same, we have exactly, we can find exactly the respective at least one relation which is connected to the situation. Every relation from this family is defined just on facts or not non-facts, but there are any mixed cases. So they connected only facts or only non-facts. Any case, there is any mixed cases. For example, the relation is connection between fact and non-fact. Not, it's forbidden. And the third condition, this family is not total. There's no one relation connects all the situation. It's only partial relation, not total.
Это не вытекает из второго?
Ну, в каком-то отношении не обязательно. Во втором, да, оно вытекает, да, уже автоматически, но здесь имеется в виду частичность в более явном виде. Там это еще можно опустить, конечно, для знающих людей, но лучше not to say it plainly. That is the truth. So, our universal became more complex. And then, in this game theoretical semantic for such kind of logic, where we have more connectives, we have coreferentiality, and we have coreferentiality in a sense. Then we have the following rules for such semantics, for game theoretical semantics. For example, for coreferentiality, we have such a rule. The rule is factually the same, but in case of this connective, our games will start from the checking the other at least one relation for this family. For which situation, for such a situation, yes, this is a relation, for such a relation for concrete is effect in M. If the answer is positive, then we have a winner. Myself is a winner. If not, so if we have one from this family relation, not all, at least one, then we can say that this will be, so to say, we are winner in this game. We can reformulate these rules in such a way. For example, first rule is that here games started from the checking are coreferential S1 and S2 coreferential in our model. If the answer is positive, then myself is a winner. And for this collective, we are starting from the checking if S1 and S2 are similar in a sense. These are connected. The situation connected with some similarity relation. If we can find such a relation, we can say they are similar, and then answer is positive, and then myself is a winner. The third reformulation We can also speak in the language of contextuality. So we can say that this is true, this S1 is referring as true, that the game start with the start from the checking S1 and all S1 and S2 are coinciding in our model. If yes, then myself is a winner. For this connective, we have that we start from the checking other at least one common context, common text for S1 and S2 in our model. If yes, then myself is a winner. We can also reformulate all these rules for the case when our connectives are not identity, but situational implication and involvement. The exact name is not implication, involvement, or the connective for involvement. In this case, I can say the S1 situationally involve S2, co-referentially involve S2, if we are starting to from the checking other situation in our model. In case of the positive answer, myself is the winner. The second rule for the situation involvement in a sense, not involvement situation involvement, but I can say that situation involvement in a sense, in the case if we have such one relation, situation involved, we have all relations, they are connected with all relations. In one relation, we check in the other at least one antisymmetrical relation for which the situation is antisymmetrical because we have not identity, but we have implication. It is directed connective. Okay, we again can reformulate. We can reformulate this in another term such that it is true if we're trying to check whether a referential S1 involves S2. If the answer is positive, then myself is a winner. And the second rule, if we starting from the checking whether S1 in a sense involves S2 in M. In case positive answer, then myself is a winner. And the third reformulation we can say in terms of contextuality. We start from the checking whether all contexts of C1 involve context of C2 of S2. If the answer is positive, then myself is a winner, and so in case of the essential situation, coreferentiality and sense, then we try to check whether some context, at least one context of for S1, context for S2 in M. So the answer is positive, then myself is a winner, and the nature, fortunately, nature is not a winner.
Then I read that potentially the game is infinite, right? So there is no...
Like a classical case. There is any difference. We simply change our terminology from the truth and falsity of the facts, and model are extended, and all the circumstances are the same. And finally, I can say about interrogative games. You know, firstly, I have here. So we can conclude that the set game theoretical semantic for some logical calculus in principle, give us a possibility to consider in some context of a proposition in the framework of the apparatus. But also there is another possibility to extend such non-Fregean ways of accounting of context and in the case of the interpretation of interrogative and rogative abductive reasoning. As the Hindik has shown, interrogative interpretation of abductive reasoning are tightly connected with the conception of interrogative games, which structure have more complex buildings and games which are applying in usual set theoretical semantic of logic, game theoretical semantic of the usual logical system. This is exactly I'm trying to recall you some main postulates of interrogative games. You see, main points are what are the players in this game. We have two players. One of them we call the investigator as a nature, counting how we count works in our games. The games works in respect for two semantic tables in bed tables, central bed tables. Starting position. In both tables, to the left column, we write theoretical position T theory, one from table containing C in right column, and the second, in this case, contains non-C. Goal of games. Investigators trying to close one of those two tables, and the nature try and resisting to his attempts to do it. Other words, investigator trying and answer the question on principle or starting question whether C or it's not true that C moves. What moves? On any stage, investigator make a choice between two kinds of moves, deductive and interrogative. Every move will connect with a stage when we consider one of subtable and we adding a new formula to the subtable. Deductive moves. Deductive moves. If we working with we are working in respect to the usual rules of the building of the table. We think that they do not the rules of the subformula structure will be do not distorted, such as the cut rule, more respondents, and so on. Interrogative games. Here, investigator asks nature. The answer, nature's answer, we write to the left column of our subtable. There cannot be any empty maps. And which kinds of questions? Types of the questions, there are two types of the questions. Whether questions or which questions? Whether questions and the question of such a type. Is it true that S1, S2, and so on, or Sk. The answer is one of these Sy. Which questions? Which questions? This is a question of such a kind. Which individual, say x, is such that we have S of x? And last notion, presupposition. Before the investigator can ask a question, his presupposition have to appear in the left column of the considerant subtable. Presupposition of where the question is disjunction of those questions, and presupposition of which questions there is such a sentences. Exists such x as S of x. There exists such x, there is the case as S of x. This is introduction. Introduction, this is not my hinticus terminology. What is interesting for us? For us, it's interesting we can adapt our notion of non-Fregean games and non-Fregean logics for this kind of games. Again, the trick is simply we again trying to speak not on the truth and false, but on the situation, the models, situation, the models. We're speaking of facts, not the truth of facts and non-facts. Non-facts is a negative situation. For example, we can modify the question for our connective involvement in situation involvement in a sense in such a way. Whether is it true that T in some sense involves C1 or T in some sense involves S2 and so on, or T in a sense involves Sk. You see this reformulation. The answer will be naturally one from this Si. But the difference is that in usual weather question we have with usual inference, and in our case we will have a contextual inference. An inference on the frameworks of our non-Fregean logic. So an inference in the situational terms. For example, in case of this connective, yes, with identity in a sense, contextual weather question will be like that. Is it true that T in a sense is similar to S1, or T in a sense is similar to S2, and so on, so on, so on, or T in a sense is similar to Sk? Now again, this whole machinery will work. In case of another kind of question, we can also adopt our apparatus of non-Fregean reasoning, speaking in contextuality or speaking of situation of facts and so on, and exploring exploiting the respective models and speaking of facts. For example, in case of which question, yes, in this case, on the situation involved in a sense, we obtain such a version. Which individual, say B, is such that there is some x as x, in a sense, involves S from B. For the co-referential involvement, which question will be as such. Which individual, say B, is such that there is such x, that we have S of x, referentially involves S from B. It's not as easy to consider situation when in the process of invention, a real investigator need to use more small class of alternatives before before to ask Oracle the final question. Then, for example, we can introduce the following with the question. Is it true that S1 in a sense is similar to S2, or S2 in a sense is similar to S3, and so on and so on, or Sk minus 1 in a sense is similar to Sk. And in the same manner we can consider following contextual which question. Which individual, say B, is such that there is such x for the x in this expression in a sense involves such an expression as from B. You see, the essential expression involves such an factual expression, and another individual, say C, is such that this is the essential expression in a sense. It involves C, and B in a sense is co-referential to C. This is also the patterns of such interpretation of interrogative